Welcome Alpha 40 fans. This is going to be a deck tech video, but also a quick mail day video. In this package, we picked up one Alpha uncommon card that we used to play in Alpha 40 when we first played Merfolk of the Pearl Trident and Lord of Atlantis Merfolk decks in Alpha. And if I did it correctly, the thumbnail to this video should be my original Alpha 40 League Merfolk deck that we used before the league formed in like 2019, 2020, when they added all the restrictions and the rules and which cards were restricted and moderated. And so the copy of the card that we picked up was Clone. And as you can see here, Clone is a summon spell, so it's a creature spell. Art is by Julie Barrow. It's a star, and upon summoning, Clone acquires all normal characteristics, including color, of any one creature in play on either side. Any enchantments on original creature are not copied. Clone retains these characteristics even after original creature is destroyed. Clone cannot be played if there are no creatures in play. And so ideally, what you would do is play this on a Lord of Atlantis and then have two Lord of Atlantis in play. And it stays as a permanent creature in play. We also picked up some basic lands. These were from Commander Masters, and the art is by Mark Poole. So you're seeing these in the future. We're gonna take these with us to Las Vegas. I'm gonna hop in the time machine. I was curious to know if the lands connected in sort of a panoramic. It doesn't look like they do, but we're gonna take these and get those signed by Mark in Vegas. Possibly make a video about that. Oh, we got a sneaky island in there, look at that. And then some more Bazaar of Wonders. Shocker. We're still putting those into our collector box. So there's the Clone that's gonna go into this Merfolk deck. I bought a new Ultimate Guard Sidewinder deck box. I kind of recommend these. They're pretty nice. They hold up to 100 double sleeve cards or 60 triple sleeve cards, I believe is what the description says. So we pulled out all of our extra Alpha cards that you've seen on the channel before to prep this video. This is going to be an Alpha 40 Merfolk deck tech video. It's not going to be 100% optimized, but you'll get the idea of how to play Merfolks in Alpha 40. And then in the next video, I'm going to match this deck up. We'll do a battle against our regular Alpha 40 League deck that we ran in the month of September and see how they face off against each other. So this is going to be a monocolored deck, and so I recommend putting it minimum 14 lands. You can run 15 if you want to be safe. You can also run 16. I think 16 is like 20%. 20% of your deck could be lands, but this is going to run 14 copies. We've got 4 islands here. We got 4 more islands there. 4 more islands is 12, and then we've got the last 2. So we have 14 islands. It's a little bit on the I don't know, the less land side of decks. But if you're only needing 1 or 2 blue to cast spells, it's pretty effective. So then we also put in all these other cards, and one of those empty sleeves is for Clone. So I'll fan these out too and show you the rest of the deck. So we have just a quick reminder too. These were the rules for the Alpha 40 League. When I first played Alpha 40, there were no league rules yet, so you could run as many copies of any card you wanted. And some people were running like 10 Ancestral Recalls and 10 Mock Sapphires. But that was a little cost prohibitive, so I started with Lord of Atlantis. And Lord of Atlantis, I have one in this deck. Lord of Atlantis is a rare card from Alpha. Back when I started playing Alpha 40, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, this card was only $300-400 in really nice condition. So I was picking up multiple copies of Lord of Atlantis. I had as many as 13 copies at one point. I think I was running 8 of them in my Alpha 40 deck and 8 counter spells as well. So I was running 8 Lord of Atlantis and 8 copies of Counterspell. It's a Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, and did okay. It overwhelmed other decks that were not defending against creature decks, but it did lose to some sort of control decks and land destruction decks. So in the Alpha 40 League rules, you can use one card of the fast mana group. We would use Sol Ring, Mox Sapphire, or Black Lotus if we had them in this deck. We're going to keep Sol Ring in our Alpha 40 League deck, 5-color deck. So this Merfolk deck is not going to run any artifact mana. You can also run one of the power group cards, and we're running Time Twister in our other deck, so we won't put any power cards in our Merfolk deck. You can include one draw spell, so we're going to include Brain Geyser because it's costs 2 blue and an X spell which lets you draw X cards. We won't have any destruction group because we're going to use the Chaos Orb in our Alpha 40 deck. We're going to include one of the charms. We're going to include Crystal Rod to gain life every time we cast a blue spell because we're only running blue spells in this deck. Won't have any banned list cards. We'll have 3 restricted cards that are limited to 1 copy. Copy Artifact being one of them. We won't run the Sol Ring, but if they're running a Sol Ring, we could copy it for 2 mana. We'll also include Mana Short. Mana Short is restricted. It taps all the opponent's lands and empties their mana pool. So essentially kind of works as a time walk for 3 mana because they can't play any spells that turn. And then Volcanic Eruption is the final restricted card we're going to run. It costs 3 blue and X destroys X mountains of your choice. It also does X damage to each player and each creature. So when this was updated in Beta Unlimited, it had to destroy X mountains in order to do X damage, but in Alpha 40, the way this card is ruled is it just does X damage to players and flying creatures regardless of how many mountains it hits. If they are playing mono red or a goblin deck, then the bonus is you do destroy the mountains as well, but otherwise you could just cast it for 5 and do 5 damage to all players and creatures. We're not going to run any dual lands because those are going to be in the other deck. We're not going to run too many of the moderated cards, but these are what are moderated in Alpha 40. We will run 2 of the 3 possible counter spells. We're not going to run any Psionic Blasts. We are going to run, I think, 2 Icy Manipulators because those are just great against tapping your opponent's creatures down and not letting them attack. We'll run 3 Merfolk with the Pearl Tridents, a Magical Hack to turn their basic lands into islands. You could also Magical Hack your Volcanic Eruption so that you could destroy X swamps if you wanted to destroy their land while you do damage to each player and creature. And let's see, Mahamoti Djinn for late game, because once we get 6 mana out, we want to cast this flyer. Power Sinks to counter spells, a Prodigal Sorcerer. We're going to try 2 Psychic Venoms just for an other angle of damage. Some Spell Blasts to counter their spells. The Power Sinks will do damage if we have Psychic Venom in play. And then Twiddles can also tap their lands with Psychic Venom on them. And then a Vesuvian Doppelganger, which will essentially be a copy of a creature like a clone will, but it can change creatures. It's a shapeshifter, so it will change creatures on the upkeep. So we had this one spot for the clone, so we showed you Brain Geyser, Crystal Rod to gain life, 2 copies of Icy Manipulator, a copy artifact which can copy an Icy Manipulator for 2 mana instead of 4, 2 counter spells, which cost 2 blue, 1 Lord of Atlantis, which costs 2 blue, 3 Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, which only cost 1, an empty sleeve for the Clone. And I checked my records. Clone was a card that I had purchased for about $25 to $50 back in the day, and I had sold it for $75 2-3 years ago when I had extra copies of these, and then I just recently picked it up It was about $175. So it had gone up about 100% in price from a couple years ago, despite the fact that alpha cards have come down 30 to 40% in the last month. Overall, alpha prices have been still fairly stable. There's the magical hack that turns lands into other lands. This is the Mahamoni that's going to do damage in the air. We got the mana short, 2 power sinks to counter spells and do damage with the psychic venoms. The prodigal sorcerer to block creatures and or do 1 damage to any target. 2 spell blasts to counter spells. 2 twiddles to tap lands. A Vesuvian doppelganger to copy Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, let's say. The one thing to note about Lord of Atlantis is that in alpha it is a lord, it is not a merfolk. So if you had multiple copies of Lord of Atlantis in play, they would not give each other +1/+1 or Island Walk. The Lord of Atlantis only gives the Merfolk of the Pearl Trident Island Walk and ++1 in alpha. So you need to have Lord of Atlantis and a Merfolk of the Pearl Trident on the table in order to pump and give Island Walk to those creatures. And then the last kind of a board wipe is the Volcanic Eruption, which will take out all of their creatures if you do like 2 or 3 damage across the board, and they'll have like 1/1, 2/2, 2/1, 2/2 creatures, 3/6 creatures in play, or not 3/6, but like 5/3, like Juggernauts. It would take out Juggernaut for 3 damage. So we'll do a quick shuffle with this Alpha 40. This is 40 cards. Could probably be improved by adding Soul Ring or Ancestral Recall, but essentially this is still kind of a budget deck. The most expensive card I think is Vesuvian Doppelganger, Lord of Atlantis, Brain Geyser. Those are still 4 figures in Alpha 40. I'm just going to do a goldfish with this, and then in the next video, if you subscribe to this channel, you'll get an update when that video goes live. We're going to battle head-to-head this Alpha 40 Merfolk deck with our regular Alpha 40 League deck that's running 5 colors and all the dual lands, just to get a sense of which deck might do good in casual play or even the month of October if we run a different deck in the league for October. So there is our deck. We're gonna draw 7 cards. 12 minutes into this video. Give this a thumbs up if you're still watching. Like the video, please. All right, we have basic lands, counter spell, copy artifact. Pretty good start. In alpha, you start by drawing a card. We're gonna draw a card. We got another island. We can't play anything on turn 1, so we'll pass to them. Hope that they do not have black vices. We got Psychic Venom, which is good. So that's what we're gonna play. We're gonna tap 2 blue. We're gonna play Psychic Venom like this on their basic land. So when they tap that, they're gonna take 2 damage. Let's untap. Let's pretend they have to cast a spell, so they're gonna tap their land. They're gonna be at 18 and pass it to us. We'll draw a card. We drew a Spell Blast. We're gonna play another island. So we got 3 islands in play. We're gonna put them over here just out of the glare, out of the sun this morning. And then what else can we cast? We can copy an artifact, we can power sync, we can cast a Vesuvian Doppelganger, and we can counter spell any card. So we have a lot of counter magic in our hand. Let's pretend they cast something for, they untap. We'll just pass the turn with all this counter magic. We will untap. They will cast a spell for 2 mana, let's say. So they'll take 2, go to 16, and we're actually gonna tap 3 blue. We're gonna Spell Blast that 2 mana spell, and they're at 16, and they pass. And we will untap, draw a card, another island, so we kind of get them flooded, but we'll see here. So we have 4 mana in play. We can do more counter spells. Let's pretend they cast a Soul Ring. That is really ideal. So we're gonna tap 2 blue, we're gonna copy artifact, that Soul Ring on the other side of the table, and then we're gonna pass to them. They'll untap their land, they'll draw they will, let's say they cast a spell for 3 mana, they tap out, they're gonna be at 14, but we can also, let's say that, yeah, they play it for 3, but they don't tap the land with the venom on it. We'll tap an island and a colorless. We're gonna power sync for 1, tapping their psychic venom land. So they take a damage or 2, they take 2 damage down to 14. But their spell does not get countered, but they just take 2 to play it. So they'll pass it to us. We'll untap. We'll draw. We also have the copy Soul Ring. We could have played Soul Ring too. Okay, we'll just play Island. And then we have enough mana, so we'll tap Soul Ring. And 2 blue and an extra color. Well, Vesuvian Doppelganger, whatever creature they have over there, we're not gonna block or attack. We'll pass the turn. They'll untap. They're not gonna tap their Psychic Venom yet. They're still at 14, they'll pass to us. We're gonna play this island, and then we're going to play Mahamoti Jijin if we have enough mana. So that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 more blue. So we have 6 mana. We're gonna play the Mahamoti. Let's say they tried to counterspell it, so we're just gonna tap 2 blue. We're gonna counterspell whatever they're trying to counter. So Mahamoti sticks. We have a Vesuvian Doppelganger that's copying one of their creatures. They're at 14 life. Mahamoti is summoning sick. We're out of cards. We'll pass the turn to them. They're gonna do a bunch of stuff, but not take any damage. They're gonna pass it over to us. On our upkeep, we're gonna declare a new target for Mahamoti Jijin. For the Vesuvian Doppelganger, we're gonna say it's a Mahamoti. So now we have 2 Mahamoti Jijins. They're both summoning sick. We're gonna draw the card. We're going to move to combat. We're gonna swing with 10 in the air and put them at 4 life. And then they'll be at 4. And then we're gonna tap 2 blue. We're gonna play Lord of Atlantis. That's pretty good. So there's our Lord. We don't have any Merfolk yet. We'll pass the turn. They'll avoid tapping their land. They'll pass it to us. We're gonna untap. And I think Vesuvian's still gonna clone or copy the Mahamoti because it's the best card in the deck right now. We'll draw a card. We drew Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. We'll tap that. We'll play that. It will get pumped by the Lord of Atlantis. And then we're just gonna go in for the win and just swing in the air for 10 life. So that is a pretty simple Merfolk of the Pearl Trident Alpha 40 Merfolk deck. You're running Lord of Atlantis and the Merfolk. With also some counter spell, counter magic, and flying creatures in the deck. We're also running the 1 copy of Clone that we picked up in the mail this week. Let me know in the comments if you've played a deck like this or if you enjoyed this Merfolk build in Alpha 40. Stay tuned for tomorrow's matchup. We're gonna battle this deck against our regular Alpha 45 color deck and let you know who wins. Stay tuned. Thanks everyone.